Do we have to sing Vern happy birthday?
Hey, Vern, happy birthday.
Good morning,
It's
everybody.
fine. I'm
Maybe
not
right
singing.
after the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yeah.
Recording in progress.
Mayor, all set?
Yes, sir.
Welcome, everyone, to the public hearing that was scheduled for 5 PM today, prior to our council caucus. Debbie, will you please call the roll?
DeGeronimo,
Here.
Grandel,
Here?
Narducci. Here. Tagliani.
Here.
Tracus,
Present.
Baverka,
Here.
Walchanowitz.
Here.
And public hearing has been scheduled, and it's one item on in regards to the public hearing, and that is ordinance number 2023-95, which is on tonight's agenda under second reading. And it's an ordinance amending chapter 1366 for lease rental occupancy certificate of the codified ordinances of the city of Independence. This piece of legislation has been introduced by Councilman Chris Walchanowitz and Jim Tracus. Gentlemen, I don't know if you want to start the dialogue and explain as far as the changes and what this legislation purports to do.
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Good afternoon, everybody. The ordinance before us, 2093-95, amends and creates Chapter 1366, Lease Rental Occupancy Certificate. Fairly straightforward. The most significant part of this legislation is that no single-family dwelling shall be leased or rented for a period of less than 30 days. Leasing or renting a single-family dwelling for less than 30 days shall constitute a violation of this chapter. So in other words, what this is trying to do is to make sure that our residential neighborhoods are residential in nature as well as in function, that they are not being used for commercial purposes. That has not been something that has been problematic so far, but we wanted to try to get ahead of the game as we've seen what unfortunately a good idea has become in other communities. I would reference several of our neighboring communities where they have not had regulation until recently on these types of dwellings. I'll reference that more in a moment. So first of all, from a philosophical perspective, we have a commercial district where there are short-term rentals that happen all the time. We have hotels, motels, we have long-term stay facilities. So in our commercial district, there are plenty and ample opportunities for individuals to temporarily stay in our community for whatever reason that they choose to do so. With respect to the residential part of our community, if you are building or buying a home in a residential neighborhood, there is an expectation that that is a residential feel. So we allowed home rentals, actual rentals where people live, more than 20 years ago, and individuals live in homes and rent from whoever owns the homes. But that is a long-term, commitment to live in our community. The new popularity over the last maybe decade or so has been short-term rentals for the purposes of, it could be for short-term stays that you think of business travelers or individuals that come for, entertainment purposes to the city or to the region. But unfortunately, what we've seen all too many times is that for reasons that were never anticipated, these become nefarious activities. The city of Richmond Heights was just a very good example. What they discovered was that these homes were not being rented to people on a temporary basis who wanted to stay in Richmond Heights for any purpose other than to have parties, to sell and buy and use drugs, and these became houses of prostitution. One ward in particular had dozens of these types of houses. The city understood what the problem was and rectified it earlier this summer. Our hope is that by proposing and passing this legislation tonight and getting the public feedback on it, we would avoid that type of problem. We simply want to keep the residential nature of our residential neighborhoods as residential and maintain the commercial part of the commercial district for those who wish to use it for entertainment purposes or to vacation or business travel or whatever it is. We feel that Independence provides a great opportunity for both of those types of opportunities. We are very renowned for having excellent accommodations in our community. We have top-notch hotels. We have appropriate policing, security at those hotels. And we know that people would have a safe experience by staying in our hotel, motel, and short-term rental facilities on Rockside Road or in that Rockside corridor. That's not what city residential neighborhoods were ever intended to be, and this simply states that. So we're hoping that by having no less than a 30-day policy, that would substantially discourage any type of these nefarious activities that we discovered in other communities and provide a simple, the opportunity for owner-owned premises to live in or to rent legitimately and fairly as we've been doing, which have not created the types of problems that we've seen in other communities. So that would be a summation of what this legislation does and its intent.
Thank you, Jim. Chris, do you have anything more to add, your co-sponsor?
Just as, I mean, Jim spelled it out extremely well. I've received over the past year several phone calls from concerned residents that they've noticed they've had people maybe renting a room for a week or two, not just a whole house, but renting rooms and stuff. So I'm hoping with this ordinance that, that we can kind of do away with that as well, because some of the residents are concerned with that.
And in fact, in function, I do believe that that would be the case.
And I noticed that there's been a recommended change, I guess, in 1366.03, a fee. It talks about failure to timely pay this, the $25 fee. Now, that it used to be every 30 days, but now I think it's changed to, I think it's almost every day.
7 days.
This is here every day an owner continues to violate any provision of this chapter is a separate and new violation.
I think, Dave, the way I would read that and what we had talked about with the law department was that would be no less than 30 days. So in other words, if you were leasing your home for a 30-day period, you would pay the $25 and then lease the home, and then you wouldn't have to pay it until the next time you do something like that. Is that correct, Mr. O'Brien?
That's, Commissioner Giroux should weigh in because he deals with the applications, but that's my understanding.
Mike, what is your read on that? Is that, it looks like it's every day that they are in violation of not paying the.
Well, if you're talking about the potential fine.
Right.
The
It looks,
significant material fine to dissuade people from violating. If you don't have too onerous of a fine, then people may build that right into the rental rate.
because what is, I mean, how many, Mike, do you know offhand, how many people have registered their properties that are rental properties with the city?
Right now, I believe the count is
19, and there's probably the compliance with this is, I would imagine, we probably have more than 19 rental.
We had about 400 a couple of years ago.
So we haven't really been doing much enforcement, and Tom, this has been, I think this was your original legislation, it's been a number of years, but.
The only thing I would add is if you want to dissuade rooms in particular, because in another part of our code, 1107, I believe, it's been on the books since the 60s, there is a provision allowing homeowners to rent individual rooms. So to the extent you want to keep that in place, which I hadn't heard that regarding any change, but you want to impose to anyone who wants to rent a room that they do so in not less than a 30-day increments, then I would suggest we make an amendment on the floor to 136601 C. Well, my number's, I guess, D. It'd be no single-family dwelling in whole or part shall be leased or rented for a period of less than 30 days, leasing or renting a single-family dwelling, comma, in whole or part for less than 30 days shall constitute a violation of this chapter.
I would so move as a
I'll-
friendly amendment.
I'll second that motion. Dave, you want to call the roll?
Sure. Rendell?
Yes.
DeGeronimo?
Yes.
Narduzzi?
Yes.
Tagliati?
Yes.
Tracus?
Aye.
Ververka?
Yes.
Walchanowitz?
Yes.
Very good. Then the motion passed unanimously.
And do we have any idea currently how many of these Airbnb setups we have within the city?
Precludes daily rentals.
I do not know, Councilperson Tagliati. This isn't intended towards any one business, just specific to rentals in general. So I have not checked on that, so I
But
don't
it
have a good answer.
effectively bans Airbnb-type operations in Independence, correct?
Unless it's for 30 days or more.
Well, usually people are, you're going for a weekend, a week, there, it's usually not that long.
Jim, how do you propose that we prove, follow up? How do we know?
Yeah, thank you, Councilperson. Well, you know, I was the head of a state regulatory agency for 2.5 years, and kind of reminds me of the old Army slogan, if you see it, call it in. If something looks suspicious, call it in. I suppose that most of these types of things, that the administration and working with council would get the word out about the change in policy should we pass this evening, that there would be an enforcement mechanism, you know, built in as to how to enforce, whether it's through the police department or the, you know, building department or something else. And then obviously we would want to have the residents be able to identify things. That's how we find out about violations of most types of violations. So generally by having an informed citizenry, they would probably be able to do the best. I don't think we're going to be knocking on people's doors and asking them, you know, if this is happening in their homes that week or anything like that. So it's not entitled to be, it's not supposed to be intrusive by any stretch of the imagination, but we're hoping to get, like any type of a regulation that is put forward, you want to try to have the community to understand it and to help us to report it should that be necessary.
Let me follow up a little bit. We do have legislation on the books. We have a whole 19 rental units that have registered, that have followed through with a piece of legislation that was passed a few years ago, 19 out of the possibly 400 units. We also have a legislation on the books as it relates to feeding deer. And talking with some people, they say, describe a number of people around that are feeding deer. We have legislation related on the books as it relates to storage of recreational vehicles on property. And that's another issue that is out there that, you know, so I guess one of the biggest problems that I see, and the reason I asked the question initially, is we have pieces of legislation on the books and we don't seem to follow through with those pieces of legislation. In other words, originally when it was proposed by Councilman Narduzzi that we follow up on these rental units, and we initially followed up to some degree, and then we've let that lapse. We were really concerned about the deer and the deer ticks and so on, and we didn't pay attention to that. We paid careful attention initially to the recreational vehicles, and that's lapsed. So, you know, I'm kind of concerned about, here we go again, putting another piece of legislation out there that basically just sits there unless there's a very specific case that comes along.
Yeah, Councilperson, I can, let me address your first question. How are these going to come to light? I've had occasion to deal with, in the private sector, on behalf of zoning laws in other counties for individuals that have placed their houses in kind of a commercial setting in VBRO. And many times, these come to light because there is a complaint. There's a disturbance in a residential area, and the way the city is, or the municipality or the public subdivision, political subdivision, is called upon to remedy that disturbance. And often ways, the way you prove a violation of this type of ordinance is unless, and I haven't seen it, I guess it's possible, unless the homeowner is renting through word of mouth, they're oftentimes, the vast majority of them, they're advertising in such a way on the internet. And so you can capture that information, and it's very clear if the house on Phillips Avenue, 123 Phillips Avenue is on one of these website platforms advertising their house for weekend getaways. So that's way you can definitively show they're in violation. And oftentimes when you bring that to the, at least in my experience, bring that to the homeowners, there's not too much of an argument after that situation. As to your second comment, because I am probably the second line of defense through the building department of when they have complaints, because you have a very, very efficiently running building department, and you don't have anyone individually identified for many of the types of ordinance to enforce them, just like the ordinance here, most oftentimes that when Mike gets, Commissioner Giro gets a complaint, and we get a lot of recreational vehicles, abandoned vehicles on properties, we've been enforcing those. Some of them has come before council in the last couple of years as nuisances because we've been able to abate them. But the vast majority, once the building department, somebody calls, complains about it, and then the building department, with its limited resources, goes off to that particular home, in this case, having, utility vehicles or recreational vehicles in violation of ordinance. Oftentimes, the homeowner will abate those, and very little involvement after that with the building department. In the very rarest of occasions, the building department can't get it abated, and the law department will get involved, we'll write a letter. And in those cases, the vast majority of them are abated. You've seen the very, 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 very small percentage come before this board when able, and I'm using like the nuisance ordinance as an example. So unless the council wants to, and it's its prerogative, create new positions solely for the enforcement of these ordinances, I think it's just going to happen the old-fashioned way. Someone's going to be upset that someone's doing something in their neighborhood or in violation of an ordinance, and they're going to have to call the police department, the building official, and then we're going to have to investigate and abate that violation.
Well, I feel like at this point, if we have that many rentals and we get that many complaints about the way yards look and trying to keep up to a standard, I think we're at the point where we need to invest in a person that handles just this department. Because Mike has enough on his plate going through the building department. Just adding more and more and more to that to him, that's a full-time job for one person to handle that. So maybe that is something that we need to look into. It's finding a person that strictly manages those past ordinances that have been passed and aren't, being used. The only way we're gonna get to, a solution is by adding help to solve these issues.
Yeah, if I may, Councilman, we talk about the recreational vehicles, the deer feeding, the daily room rentals. When those issues are brought to the administration's attention, through the building department or through the law enforcement, we address them individually. And they're usually through a neighbor situation. Someone doesn't want to be so conspicuous in terms of their frustration or concern about deer and tick, but they notify us, we go out and we try to remedy the situation informally at first. The more severe situations, like the cars and the housing aren't being maintained, then we come to city council and council passes legislation, and then we go out and we proceed, take the necessary legal steps to eradicate the situation. If in fact we have a full-time enforcement officer, then that's something that's open for debate. It's more additional funding, it's gonna cost more money, and, but right now, if there's a recreational vehicle, or there's a deer feeding situation, or there's a daily room rental, this would allow us to manage the daily room rental right now, then. Because that's the issue that it's brought to my attention on a regular basis. But the other enforcement continues to be when a neighbor, usually a neighbor or somebody has a situation, we'll send somebody out to address the situation. And it usually manages itself at that point. But again, there are those extreme situations we've had to deal with the last couple of years where we've had to go out and manage it with the legal system. So there is a solution. It depends on how much you want to invest in this particular concern and how much it really is a concern in the community. And the houses that aren't maintained, they're not just rentals, by the way, just to be clear. I mean, you can't pick and choose which one's a rental, which one's not a rental. So enforcement is still something that when we get the calls, we send someone out, we identify the situation, and we attempt to rectify it informally through cooperation. After that, then we'll do the more formalized, formal citation. Hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Mayor. Any other questions or comments on John?
Yeah, just on the ordinance at hand. I've stayed at Airbnbs. It's a nice option when you're out of town, when there's not a, nice hotel close by or you're with a group. I don't think it would be a bad option to have in town. I guess if we pass this, it would still allow someone to request a variance. Maybe there is a neighborhood, a street, some kind of dwelling where people at least could talk to the neighbors, say, anyone have a problem with this? I guess that would still be on the table and would go through the normal variance process. I think even if we didn't pass this, any Airbnb would probably already be out of compliance with our existing rental registration because you have to get the new tenant to sign off each time. So if they're probably out of compliance already. That doesn't mean that we couldn't, do both, but I'm just saying it's probably, I would guess that if there was an Airbnb, we would determine that they're already out of compliance. So I don't know if there's any, if an owner is in a house and rents their back garage or apartment, or they got some other dwelling on site, I don't think they'd be having the kind of problems like Jim was alluding to initially. So I'd stay open-minded to that. I'm good of, passing this here, but just if you had that one house, I don't know, across the whole city, it probably wouldn't be a bad option to have, but I guess that homeowner could come forward and request a variance.
And is there a variance process for this
Oh,
ordinance?
yeah, and with any code, within our code, you can always request a variance. Whether or not one is given, I couldn't tell you, but at least that process is clear. If someone comes in and asks for, a variance, then at least you have, traditionally, as Debbie knows, neighbor notification that someone's seeking a variance, and here's what they want to do. So, yes, the answer is yes.
If you made the application process simple, where someone could come to the building department and say, I want to Airbnb my house I'm going to be out of town for a month or so, and I want to Airbnb my house, if I can attract some reasonable renters. If there was a simple process, such as going to the building department and getting signing some type of a document that says that, and then we can alert the police department and make sure, and then see how it goes. But if you can't make it too cumbersome, like if someone has to come in and go to council every time they want a variance, then it's just not gonna work.
Yeah, you want to rent your house out, you're going out for a week, and then that's gonna be in a couple of weeks, and then you gotta get on a ZBA agenda, and then
Right,
they
it's
put
gotta
you
be a
on the
simple
next month,
process,
and,
right.
and then they're gonna want to call a public hearing to query your neighbors, and it effectively, there's a variance process, but in reality, it's not gonna work. At
Very
least what the mayor outlined is a more palatable
I'm just-
option.
Councilman DiGiorno, I think that offers some flexibility, and in time, we would determine how effective it is, rather than just, we're absolute.
Well, and bringing the whole, it's been a while since I've gone through the whole rental ordinance. I didn't see in here as part of like the annual registration. I think it's on the form that it is required part of annual, but I don't think it's in here that once you register the first time, that you're required to do an annual registration. Maybe we could just look at the whole I mean, I've got some rentals I work on, I mean, there's probably an easier way to do it, maybe some technology solutions that we could do to make it more automated and.
Yeah, someone could actually, if you use use technology, they could actually do it online. If they wanted to, if they found a situation they were in where their house is gonna be vacant for some time, and they wanted to use it for that purpose, and the city's aware of it, then we can monitor the situation rather than just exclude it, period.
The annual registration.
So I know through our school system, they have an annual, like, renters agreement that parents have to sign in order for their students to go to school for ed independence, and it has to be notarized. To me, the fact that the schools know how many more rentals in the city of Independence than we as a city know is just another step on why I feel we need somebody to handle that department for us.
Well, I could solve your rental problem right now. I can't see that those documents would be anything less than public records. Someone just go over and request them, and then you can send letters to all your renting entities saying, hey, of the 40, 30 are not registered. Perhaps you don't know this. Here's the application, and then you can whittle it down. Then you have a more robust list than you have now. If that's, that'd be a more efficient way to find out and get all your people, in at least the current rental houses, in compliance up to that date.
Well, if there's 400 as the figure I've heard quoted tonight, and we've got 19 registered, I mean, that's not even a 5% compliance rate, so I think we got to deal with what we have first before we start talking about more regulations.
We have legislation on the books, and there's trouble with the guy renting his house out to this guy for a party on Friday night, a guy on this for a party on Saturday night. We can't do nothing about it. So all legislation's doing is giving us the power. We're not going out.
There's a
If trouble
disturbance.
comes to us, we gotta be able to defend ourselves.
If there's a disturbance at a house, I don't care if it's an Airbnb or if it's the owner's kids, the cops show up and they shut it down. It doesn't matter who's in it.
Sounds easy. And I think all they're trying to do is protect us. And I agree 100%. I mean, in a recreational part of town that, somebody's got to have an Airbnb and then rent out their house all the time. And people aren't coming here I just don't get it.
Well, people are asking $1,000 a week, a couple thousand a week when the RNC convention was here in 2016. That doesn't
Yeah, but if
happen.
it disrupts the neighborhood, it's not helping independence. I don't care if the guy makes $5,000 a night. It's not helping the residents out. It's not helping out independence. You're not getting a tax dollar for that. You don't even know what's going on.
It is the United States and people have private property rights.
The biggest issue we have right now is the room rentals. I've rarely come across situations with Airbnbs. And the maintenance issues on the properties are a different issue completely. We can enforce those. We usually, like I said, we don't usually encroach on properties or become overbearing until our neighbor or somebody identifies an issue for us. You have a neighbor, there was a neighbor over here at Delmer. Neighbors called about the salt lick and feeding the deer. And they took pictures of the deer eating, and so we had to go out and we had to stop the situation. So, but we're not gonna go in their backyard and check it out. It's just not gonna happen.
Again,
Even if we have an enforcement officer, we're not gonna do that unless someone brings it to our attention or we drive by and see something. We're just not gonna do that.
I think the concept here is related not towards these other matters, which is a healthy conversation to have, but we're talking about, should residential neighborhoods be residential? And should we have a commercial district where people want to go for short-term stays? I think the people who invest millions of dollars in hotels and motels here would agree that the commercial district is where we should be having our focus on people who are staying for short-term periods of time. And if people want to live in homes, that they should live in homes. And, they're not commercial enterprises operating in neighborhoods. And I think that's the principle here. We could determine the regulatory enforcement at a later time, but let's give the tools that we need to try to, make sure that this is a community of fine homes and that's a neighborhood of fine homes. I think when you build or buy a home here, you expect this to be a residential neighborhood. And that's what we've advertised, that's what we are, that's what our laws call for. These are opportunities for us to simply live up to the promise that we made to our residents back in 1960 when we provided with a charter.
And as Vern always points out in the caucus room, we're a premier community, and this will just help keep us there.
I agree with you gentlemen. As far as, if we're somewhere where there's hardly any hotels or that, there might be more of a need, but we have so many hotels on Rockside and everything. Just Airbnb, my daughter went to, they had that's the newest thing with the bachelor and bachelorette party. They're not just an overnight thing now, it's a destination. And they went to Dallas and they had an Airbnb in a real nice upscale community in Dallas. But there's 20 people there, they had pool parties, they had booze and everything else. That might be good there because it's gated and it's well protected, but when you're talking here, or most of our homes are close together and everything, and they have those kind of things going on till 2 or 3 in the morning, it would be, I would think it would be offensive and everything. And I know that Mayor Law, a few years back, I think there's a home in one of the nice areas of town that there was, drug activity going on. I think, Greg, I think you guys, the law department was involved with that. So you want to keep any opportunity for that. You want to at least have laws on the books that will protect our residents. We don't like to pick and choose our ordinances, but still, it's nice to have something in place that that we can use to protect our residents for peaceful. Like I said, you pay a good amount of money to live here in this town, in your homes and that, and you want to live peacefully and be able to, safely too, and not have trouble spots. So I think this is a beginning for that. Like John mentioned, if somebody has an Airbnb, but again, when you're having, the homes are as close together as they are here, I think it'd be difficult, if the intent is to have, if the intent is to come here for, like the convention and everything else, there could possibly, council could look at it and say, maybe you have a special dispensation, if you have an event like that. Matter of fact, there will be one next month when you have, or next year, when the total eclipse of the sun's coming. I know there's people who are coming to this area, so you might want to look at a waiver for, special circumstances and that, but.
And when the Browns go to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, that's. Or if we ever get our dome stadium here, we have a Super Bowl in town.
Yeah, I agree. I think if you're in a neighborhood and you saw some constant turnover, that would create some anxiety with the neighbors, and we wouldn't want to create that, but Rockside Road's got its own issues right now. If you got guests from a family coming from out of town, it wouldn't be a bad option. So I guess I'm open to, if we pass this and then think about looking at the bigger rentals and some permit process of some different options in the future.
Very good. Any other questions or comments from council? Any other questions or comments from the gallery here?
I know sorry, go ahead. I know in years past, there was some state legislature movements to regulate this at the state level. Is that still on the table?
Good question, Councilperson. Yes, so it goes both ways. So there had been legislation pending in this session of the General Assembly to both prohibit short-term rentals, and then in the budget process, there was an amendment that was added that Mayor Kurtz helped get out, I think, through bringing it kind of an assault on the rights of cities to create their own rules. But there was an attempt to say that cities couldn't have any impact on this process. So it's gone back and forth. At this time, there is no legislation that is passed into law, obviously, that has an impact on the city's ability to have its own regulation of these types of enterprises.
So
But
if the.
it came from legislators in Cincinnati where there had been some pretty substantial abuses who wanted to do the prohibition, but that did not pass through the General Assembly.
So if a state level regulation was passed, it would trump our legislation anyway, correct?
It sure
Yes.
would. Yep.
And there's also, there's also around the state and around the country, cases pending that, depending on how they come out, and depending on whether they're controlling in the state of Ohio, could affect this ordinance. But as of today, nothing has gone that far in the whole court system.
And actually, you know, when Councilperson Walchanowicz and I were talking to the law department about how to form this up, you know, we wanted to make sure it was thoughtful, that we were not being too, too extreme in any measure. We tried to put together some legislation we thought that was thoughtful and enforceable, respecting everybody's rights as citizens and as property, property owners. And we came up with this approach because this approach had been challenged in other communities in other states and had passed constitutional muster.
And this is just a hypothetical situation, but if a large international corporation that's headquartered in the city of Independence purchases a residential home through an LLC for their employees to stay at on an interim basis rather than renting hotel rooms in the city, would that be allowed?
If they stayed for 30 days or longer, yes. If they wanted to rotate them out, again, I represent a lot of companies, some of the size that you're talking about. They like most of their people like stay in hotels, but in the extent that they want to stay on a short-term basis, they would have to come and seek a variance. Yeah.
Not if the company doesn't lease or rent it to their employees, if they just let
Give
them
it to
stay
them.
there.
Capital okay, let me just throw what little I know about finances, but they want to deploy capital in buying a house in the city of Independence where housing stock is at maybe a higher than market versus on a short-term basis without deploying that type of capital on a very variable basis, going to the hotel, which they can write off. I don't know if they want to devote $250,000 versus maybe $10,000 in the whole any given year and housing them in a hotel. But I'm not running a major national corporation.
Very good. Any other questions or comments?
Did we resolve, what happens if someone does want to go in department, say, I'm going to be renting for a couple of weeks? Have we created a mechanism to be able to do that?
No.
Sounds like you do it and don't tell anybody.
If it's for 4 weeks or more, then yes.
Yeah, 4 weeks, right.
What if we reduce the time period from 30 days to a smaller period of time, like a week or 10 days or some
You
other
can do
number?
whatever you want. I can build it in whatever you want.
At this time, I would prefer that we not go down that route. Let's see how this functions, and if we do have to revisit it, I think we would want to take a look at that.
Unless you want to add, I'm just asking Mike, if there was a mechanism added to this legislation that would allow someone to come to the building department and to seek a permission, so to speak, is that something that's manageable through your department, or is it something you just want to stay away from?
It would basically be an administrative approval.
Yeah. Okay, just throwing it out there.
I mean, it's another tool. It could be another tool used to make sure that that person has their house registered within the city as a rental. And if they have that registered, then maybe, there's a little bit more leeway with those people.
For 30 days or more.
Okay, I just pose questions to try to find reasonable solutions based on some of the information I'm hearing across the board this evening.
And so the variance procedure would require architect, or the BZA, and then a public hearing as well?
Well,
No.
it might not be a public hearing, I'm just saying, the BZA, the first question they're gonna ask is, what's the hardship? And, hey, I'm going out of town for 2 weeks, and I'd just like to Airbnb my house while I'm out of town, and they're gonna say, well, that's not a hardship, and they're gonna deny it, so.
Good.
I like the mayor's idea of trying to do something administratively, but it doesn't seem like that's getting support. Look, I don't Airbnb my house. I don't even like staying in Airbnb. I'm uncomfortable going to somebody else's house. I'm a hotel guy. But I do think that people need to have some ability on their property to do this, so.
Well, and we do have other people that leave town for a period of months. And are we better off with those houses staying empty or with them with some other options? I mean, it seems like that kind of ties their hands while they're gone. So, I mean, I just,
You're talking months, you're not talking.
well, yeah, but I'm saying, so if I'm gone for 7 months, what's the difference if I find somebody that's gonna live in that house for 5 months, or I use that opportunity to have some people stay because they wanna have a family setting, they wanna be close to the Cuyahoga Valley. One of my friends has an Airbnb in Twinsburg. He says he gets people coming in there because it's more of a family situation instead of a hotel situation, and it's in proximity to the national park. So,
I guess you have somebody staying for multiple months, I mean, if they're not gonna have
Past 30
parties
days,
or
over
anything.
30 days.
And it wouldn't be a violation.
Right, it wouldn't be a violation. What I think the option here, that Jim and Chris are looking at these one-shot deals, they're renting it for a weekend and having, God knows what kind of orgy or that.
Yeah,
going
exactly.
on. I mean,
We're trying to avoid Caligula
Really-
coming
or
to town.
even, or even drugs.
This thing's really taking a turn, I tell
Assumes
you.
facts and not in evidence, Your Honor.
I mean, that's, you're trying to prevent, nefarious, I mean, nope.
Oh,
Dave, that circles back though to my original question. It is very difficult to try to deal with certain other pieces of legislation we have. If this is a one-shot deal, trying to narrow that down and get it before the problem exists is very difficult.
But if it does exist, you have the tool. Stop.
Jim, wasn't there an instance in the Seven Hills with an Airbnb?
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah,
Was that New Year's
New
Eve
Year's
party?
Eve.
Yeah.
And they, what, 400 people there or something? I mean, it was some very egregious, situation, and it became very intolerable for the community, and, traffic jams, and police, tied up the police for hours upon hours. Again, we're not saying that that would never happen here, but I think the intent here is that people understand that residential neighborhoods are for families and for living, not for temporary living, and that we have the opportunity for people to have temporary living if they want to have, and they do on Rockside Road in the corridor, the hotels, motels. That's for them. Those are commercial areas. These are residential neighborhoods.
I have one on my street. I don't know if this resident is, as of last year, it was full-blown. They were renting out rooms, and my neighbors were in an uproar over it because it was different people every other day or every couple days. And when you live on the street, when there is one, whose phone's ringing about it?
And aside from the neighbors seeing different people, were there any problems?
My one neighbor, there was some graffiti done on her house, but she's the type of person that she doesn't call the police. She's like, she's kind of like a recluse, so she doesn't leave much. If it wasn't for one of our other neighbors spotting it, she probably would never have seen it. But there again, it was, these people were staying for a day or 2 or 3 and then out, and then another person or 2 were coming in and out. So you have constantly different people on your street. And the way, like last year, we had numerous amounts of garages broken into on our street. We don't know if it was people that were staying in those homes, possibly casing out neighborhoods.
Yep.
I know mine was one of them that was broken into. They tried to steal one of my motorcycles out of my garage. So for me, it's kind of personal at that level. And I, like with Jim, I'm just looking for a tool to monitor these situations. So,
And Councilperson, were these people, were they professionals that have suits and ties? Were they business travelers?
no, no.
Just wondering.
Any other comments?
Just curiosity, what is the going rate, nightly rate for a room?
I don't know what it was over there. See, you know, from what I was told, you can do it as long as you don't put a sign in your yard or a sign in your window stating that you have an Airbnb. You have to go on the website to find the location and the rates are there. I never went to see what the room rates were, so.
Any other questions or comments?
Just a comment, I know that there was one home in town that someone, a resident called my attention to. It was a rental, but the rate was like astronomical by the month, but you could get it cheaper by the day. And I guess the other question I have is, and again, we're trying to make sure we put all these pieces on the table. So, and not to put you on the spot, Chris, but if you have an older neighbor who's on a fixed income and they have an opportunity to rent rooms to be able to augment their income and be able to pay their taxes and continue to live in their house, that we're gonna prevent that.
Not if they rent it.
Not on a daily basis, but I also feel that if this person is going to go down the path of renting out their house or renting out rooms, this individual is not registered as a rental in Independence. Because this person stays in her home and then rents out the rooms as this person is staying there. So, you know, if you follow the guidelines that we have and you're supposed to register your home, you know, whether you are living there and renting it at the same time, it's still a rental if someone's renting a room from you.
So if they're registered as a rental, then it still wouldn't be okay for them to
If they're there
rent a
for
room
30
for less than 30 days?
Nope, not in mine.
So I just went to Airbnb and there's one right down the street from me on Chestnut, just west of Great Oaks Parkway, second house west of Great Oaks. It's $336 a night.
Is that the only one?
There's some other rooms, and I don't know how to get back.
So is that the whole house for $336 a night?
Well, it's listed at $493, but then it's reduced for $336. Yeah. There's a room in Independence for $120 a night. So there is activity.
Very well. Any other questions before we close the hearing? Yeah, I'll entertain the motion to adjourn the public hearing.
Second.
Debbie, call the roll.
DeGeronimo,
Yes.
Grandel,
Yes.
Narduzzi.
Yes.
Tagliani,
Yes.
Tracus.
Aye.
Faberca.
Yes.
Welch Chanowitz.
Yes.
Very good. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Council, for a good discussion of that topic. We'll be voting on that legislation tonight. So now we will, I guess, we're going to need to call the roll for the regular caucus of the September 12th council meeting. Debbie?
DeGeronimo,
Here.
Grandel,
Here?
Narduzzi.
Here.
Tagliani,
Here.
Tracus.
Present.
Faberca,
Here.
Welch Chanowitz.
Here.
And I think it's been requested that, Mayor, I think it's on our regular agenda, but maybe we'll do it right now to update from Dawn, update on the Tyler Technologies by the IT department. Very good. Dawn, the floor is yours.
It's working. Hello, I can't believe it's been a year. I'll try and keep this short for everyone's benefit. Thank you for the opportunity to provide the council with a progress report on the Tyler Enterprise Asset Management System. Everybody in council should have a packet there at your desk. Since our launch at the end of August last year, we have completed over 8,000 work orders using the EAM system across 4 departments. Within those 8,000 plus work orders, we captured the following aggregate cost data: $1,918,477.29 in labor costs, $1,354,233.07 in equipment usage costs, $169,682.76 in inventory costs, and $635,988.91 in supply costs. That's Tyler EAM by the numbers for 1 year, but those numbers don't tell the whole story. A great example of how we were able to harness the capabilities of the software, the capabilities the software provides while streamlining our work order process is with our catch basin cleanout program in the service department. Prior to Tyler, the catch basin cleanout work process required our service employees to fill out a paper form by hand in the field with crucial information about the job and location. This form was entered into a binder back at the service department. If a resident called about issues relating to stormwater backups or floodings, service employees had to refer to these binders and search for the information. This was both time-consuming and often inaccurately reflected the condition of the basin upon completion of the most recent work order. With Tyler, our service employees are now equipped with tablets that allow them to not only capture this data electronically with a custom-built form, but they can also take pictures of the job and attach it to the work order directly from the field. This allows service employees to search by address to see the exact date and condition of the catch basin cleanout and convey this information immediately to the resident, now with a visual representation. This has saved them countless man-hours and vastly increased their accuracy, not only for the work that's been completed, but also for planning future cleanouts in an efficient manner. The service department really helped drive the Tyler launch from the beginning by focusing on the granular level of the services they provide across the 6 sub-departments: rubbish, land and maintenance, service garage, sewer maintenance, general service, and cemetery. I worked with Ron and his foreman and admin staff to fine-tune our processes in Tyler by creating custom menus that the crews could use on the job from their tablets. They were able to enter data sets like tonnage and yardage used, as well as drop-downs with vendor information for each type of activity. The feedback we received was that this really saved them time on capturing required data for EPA reporting, as well as internal reporting and forecasting. I was able to apply these lessons to other departments, adopting some of these processes despite those departments having different workflow models. In recreation, we researched strategies for capturing their labor hours, despite their use of seasonal and part-time help, which presented challenges for capturing this information. We met up with their entire team and worked through the new methods of capturing labor, and they are on a good track for being able to calculate their labor costs and needs for the many city events they are responsible for throughout the year. Tech Services now has great reporting tools to see which activities utilize the bulk of their resources and can budget and plan accordingly for high-ticket periods like seasonal pool maintenance, tree lighting, or home days. This can help Dave and his crew plan around these events for their formal preventative maintenance schedules. Engineering, who are on the front line of resident issues, set up Tyler to help them manage and track the requests and concerns related to stormwater issues, flooding, drainage problems, or residential construction projects. With future GIS projects in the works, they will be in a good position to leverage Tyler for the kind of data needed to predict problem areas and get ahead of them as they plan their larger infrastructure projects. Our intention is to make the absolute most out of this robust software. Despite coming into this project halfway through implementation, I see the time and effort each department put into the process each day. I am pleased with the progress we have made in the first year, and I am eager for our future projects, which include maple shade columbarium niches and cemetery mapping. Tyler 311 rollout to all city departments will begin this fall for them to begin entering interdepartmental requests and resident requests into Tyler. And the Tyler 311 My Civic rollout to residents will happen early 2024 in conjunction with the city's rebranded and refreshed websites. I've included samples of some reports in your packet, and I encourage anyone with questions or even suggestions on process improvements to reach out to me directly. Thank you.
Any questions for Don?
On the first page, the 1.35 million in equipment usage costs, explain.
So we have FEMA codes and we have equipment that we use, like scissor lifts throughout the city. They could be Kubotas. These all have usage costs that cost the city for maintenance, for purchasing new ones, for gas, those sorts. So it captures that information. And I think they were calculated using some formula through the state of Ohio, so we can determine, we were able to pull that data off of their websites.
So it's like machine time per hour.
Exactly.
So if we went to page 3, and I just circled one, 5,800 snow roads, like what would that entitle?
I'm sorry.
5,800 snow roads for 64,000?
The activity? So 5,800, you say snow roads?
Yes.
I would assume that's plowing, that activity.
5,800? Yes.
That's the department code, and then the
Yeah,
activity is
sorry.
snow roads.
So the way, that's a good question. So the way it's set up in there is, and this is what I kind of mentioned, the way Ron's group is set up, when they first designed Tyler to work for their department, they had subgroups, there were 6 subgroups, and so that way they were able to track the costs by the subgroup. So 5,800 is going to be that group that handles like snow plowing, and I assume, is that also?
Like 5,200 is rubbish.
Yeah.
Correlates with Maggie's 5,200.
I should have put a legend.
What's that?
That's for the year, or since we implemented this?
Yes.
That's not a cost, that's the department code.
I know, but I'm looking at the cost.
Oh, yeah.
Because the cost is $64,000.
Mm-hmm.
So we
Now, is
plowed
that-
the whole city for $64,000.
Is that-
Senior snowplow, we had 2 events, we're over $64,000. Think about that.
I just had a couple of questions. So
Yes, sure.
I'm not sure on the first page, when it says these 8,000 plus work orders were captured in the following aggregate costs. So the 8,000 work orders were the $1.9 million?
The aggregate is all labor costs for the entire city that we captured within the work order system, yes.
And-
So those 8,000 work orders,
So I guess
represent that.
what I'm wondering is, do you have any type of a process or a mechanism to state if these, if by using this system, are we saving money? Are we spending more money? I mean, what's the upside of the system? I understand you're tracking things differently, but are there cost or time savings because of this? Are you tracking any of that?
well, I think if you look at that, people like let's use Ron, for example. If he has to, actually I have a very good example of that. Very recently, he asked me to pull together out of Tyler the cost for 5 vehicles, auto car, the Packers. So I was able to pull that data in about 20 minutes that would take his staff a lot longer to pull if they administratively, because it's all in one place and the way the reporting system works within Tyler, you can just run a report and it pulls it all together for you. I put it in a neat package in Excel, but you can pull the raw data right out of Tyler.
But
So
we
I think
don't-
it saves time
We
and
we
money.
don't track cost savings through this versus what we used to do or anything like that?
Be able to, I mean, in time when we're having enough data, we'll be able to analyze the data.
That's what I was trying to find out.
Sure, and I think the other thing is that the efficiency of not having to always come back to the barn to pick up a work order or send somebody out.
Yeah.
These are some of the benefits of these tools that we're implementing. It's just going to take time to be able to put enough data in the system to be able to analyze.
Thank you, yeah.
And based on this report on the third page, the Christmas lights, it costs us $130,670 to put up the Christmas lights? And that's just the service department, that doesn't include the tech service? Expensive display.
But the residents love it.
My question is for you, Ron. Your department, the service department, has been, pioneering this and being really the one department that has used this right from the, do you find it useful in your job as the service director, the data information that you receive from the Tyler program? Do you feel that it it aids you in your decision-making and what you see as far as the operation of your department.
1,000%. The data, it's invaluable. The reports are at your fingertips. We can compare year to year of what we're spending. We can do budgets and analyze our costings through this. The nice thing is when the guys are already on the job site, if a resident calls in, we can shoot them a work order via their tablet immediately. And they don't have to come in, we don't have to call them. They automatically get the work order right on site, so they can just continue working. And that's invaluable for the service department.
Very good. Thank you. Any other questions, either for Don or anybody on the staff regarding this matter? Don, we thank you for the progress report. I guess, I don't know, Mayor, how often you want to have this report done, but I think it shows us, as far as council, that this program, the money that we've invested, is showing progress and being used to benefit the residents and benefit the decision makers as far as investment.
Yeah, and I think,
The audience.
Oh, we do have a Christine?
Can I ask a question, please?
Yes.
I, as a resident, often do records requests to get data on any particular subject that I want. Will I, as a resident, sometime down the road, be able to access this, to extrapolate data that I may be interested in?
I don't see why you wouldn't. That's maybe,
as long as
Law
it's
director.
not such a broad stroke of information requests and you isolate it, we should be able to refine that search and be able to provide that information to you.
And get on the system myself rather than making a
Right.
whole records request. Super.
Well, I don't think residents are gonna have access to
The database.
You're gonna have access,
requesting.
oh,
you're gonna have access to answer a question concerning data that we've collected.
Oh, I would just have to, so it would be like
You'd have to
making a
just,
records request.
right, you'd have to do a,
As
right.
usual. Okay, I wondered if I could
I'm sorry for the confusion.
eliminate that step and just get
Yeah.
my data myself.
Sorry.
And do we get down to levels of specificity such as individual events, home days, Fall Fest, or individual buildings, City Hall?
yes. You can, yeah, we have it based on, we call those, well, there's the activity codes, but then there's cause codes, meaning Fall Fest, home, tree lighting, home days. Yes, you can pull that report just for that information too.
Very good. Any other questions for Don? Don, thank you very much.
Thank
for your
you.
report. And it's come to my attention, Father is here, Father Matt Jordan. And Father, you have to be happy with the outcome of the football game on Sunday.
Hello, I'm so honored to be here with you. I'm a new resident to both to St. Michael and to Independence. I got here in January, and I'm so honored to be able to pray with you. I think it's actually just a beautiful, before I pray, I think it's a beautiful thing that I'm able to pray here, and I will always do anything to support prayer or anything that we would do to help our community. So I just want to say that before I started. So let's begin in prayer. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, amen.
Amen.
Ever-loving God, we thank you for the many gifts you have given us. The gift of our City of Independence, the gift of our elected officials, the gift of the great resources that you've given us. Lord, we pray that we may always use those things that you've given us to make our world a more beautiful place, to take care of those especially in need. Lord, we are always open to your grace and your love. We pray that your Holy Spirit may dwell in this meeting. Bless all of our families, that we may know your peace in this time. We pray that Independence may continue to be a place where you dwell. We ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Father. On with the agenda, we've already, we have one item on second reading, ordinance number 2023-95. It was the subject of our public hearing today, and we'll be taking a vote on that during the regular meeting of council. I move on to first reading, the last piece of legislation on the backside of, or on page 2. It's ordinance number 2023-98. It's ordinance authorizing the disposal of the city's surplus goods, equipment, and vehicles through GovDeals online auction service. Dennis?
Yes, good evening, Mayor and Council. First of all, I'd like to let Council know the first 2 items on the schedule I provided will be removed and will not be disposed of on GovDeals. We're researching some other opportunities for them within, internally for the city.
That's the bus and the sports
Yes, the
issue?
bus and the Chevy Suburban.
Very good. Thank you. Any
Thank you.
questions for Dennis? Thank you. Any opposition putting this on the consent agenda this evening? Seeing none, Debbie, we will put ordinance number 2023-98 on the consent agenda. Ordinance number 2023-99. It's, matter of fact, 99 and 100, we may as well take together, Don, because it's ordinance authorizing change order number 1 to both of these contracts. It's the city's 2022 sanitary and storm sewer maintenance and repairs contract. 99 is with United Survey, Inc., and 100 is with C&K Industrial Service, Inc. Both are not to exceed $100,000, and both these contracts will be extended through August 31st of 2024. Any comments to add to that, Don?
Vice Mayor, just that this is invoking the 1-year contract extension clause by mutual consent. Both vendors are willing to honor their prices, as you saw their memos that were in there. These are reputable contractors, have great working relationships with the city. They're very responsive to our needs, and we feel it's an efficient mechanism, saves us a lot of resources having to rebid these contracts.
Any questions for Don? Any opposition to putting this on the consent agenda this evening? Seeing none, Debbie, 99 and 100 will be put on the consent agenda. It's been brought to my attention that regarding, I guess it's ordinance number 2023-109, and I'm not sure what page that is, but on the agenda, 2023-109, the representative from the James B. Oswald Company is here, so maybe so you won't have to sit, we'll bring you up, sir, and we will address this legislation. So it's ordinance number 2023-109. It's ordinance accepting the proposal of the James B. Oswald Company for professional insurance brokerage services for the purchase of health care insurance for the city 2023 through 2024. I guess the amount is $25.50 per employee per month. Bridget, I'll let you introduce
Thank you.
our guest.
This is Ron Boyner. He is our representative from Oswald and was kind enough to join us this evening. You know, I think the legislation, the request here is pretty straightforward. It's more of a technicality where we are looking to renew Oswald for our broker services. Essentially, we have paid them the $25.50 per employee per month in the past. If you recall, we did receive a 2-year rate guarantee with Anthem and Guardian. In doing so, we basically renewed our contract with Oswald for 1 year. So this would be the 2nd year, and ultimately it will take us through this term until the next renewal. Oswald has been a great partner for us to work with. I will say that we are going to be challenged this year. So I think that we're going to need them more than ever. And I look forward to working with them to continue to provide us with those services. Any questions?
Yeah, any questions for either Bridget or our guest?
These are standard commissions that have been in place since 2021, no increase.
I see. And I think, Vern, on your notes that you gave us, it runs up to about just under 52,000 for the year.
Correct.
So, and just to clarify, the $52,000 a year is the $25.50 per employee per month. So what we have provided you with is a compensation disclosure form. That form is something that we are recommending you utilize annually. On that form, you're going to see some additional commissions that Oswald is receiving. They have been transparent in sharing that with us, so that is why we're sharing that with you as well. That is not out of the norm, so it aligns with what other brokers would receive and what Fidelity had received in the past.
Very good. Any questions?
The only question I have is for Bridget. Your statement was we're going to be challenged this year.
We are.
Is this year different than last year? And if maybe explain why you used the
Sure.
term challenged.
I will say that our claims and utilization are not looking the best this year. So essentially, we are expecting to, potentially receive a not so favorable renewal, which means we're going to need to explore a variety of different options.
But our year runs till next June, so we're just at the beginning of our year.
June 2024,
Right, so
correct.
we're in the first quarter of our year.
Yeah, yes, you're correct,
Isn't it
Mayor.
premature, or is this a rolling forecast?
No, yeah, you're correct. The plan renews July 1st. It's on July 1st, so you're just at the beginning of the next year. The rates are guaranteed for now, and then, but you have enrolled employees that are using the plan more, they're seeing their doctors more. So we're just being cautious as we look forward, that we will be exploring all options to make sure the city has the best plan in place.
Thank you.
By our claims going up, we are, as a city, are expressing more preventative maintenance to our employees and, so I would anticipate claims rising just because we are trying to have a healthier workforce. Am I incorrect on that?
Yeah, that's correct. So the program, the ERC Health program that you're in, comes full of risk management strategies that are doing everything they can to prevent claims from having a great impact. And so, yeah, they're encouraging people to go see their physicians. I think that's what you're getting at, so that they better manage their health conditions. And so, yeah, it's all working. Yes.
And just to add to that, I think that it's important to remember that every employer, you're going to have good years, you're going to have bad years when it comes to your health insurance plan. Over the course of the past several years, we have ran historically well. So you're bound to have a bad year here and there. And I would say that just given the way that our claims and utilization look, we just don't want it to be a surprise to council when we do see a potentially higher renewal, come July 1st. With the help of the healthcare committee, who has been absolutely fantastic in, getting the word out and encouraging employees to, utilize preventive services, I think that we certainly have the right troops on board to make sure that, we can go ahead and explore all of the best options that are obviously economically sound and in the best interest of everybody.
And is this increase in utilization unique to the city of Independence, or are you seeing it more across the board based on deferment during COVID?
I would say it's not unique. We're seeing it really in a lot of organizations, a lot of different types of organizations. There was the first wave of, when COVID hit, people stopped going to the doctors. And then a year later, people started going back to the doctors. And we're seeing that, people are becoming more comfortable. And so it's another tale, I would say. But, with inflation, it's, like anything else, things are costing more. Hospitals are having to pay more for nurses. It's really all of that put together, adding up to an increase for everyone. Market trend is 13 to 15%, depending on the carrier, so it's.
Well, I think we kind of anticipated that a year ago when we decided to go with the 2-year.
Yeah, it certainly has
to
been
lock us in for the
anticipated.
extra year.
And one of the reasons we went for a 2-year rate guarantee, right? We're really thankful that, the city could get that because it locked in your rates for 2 years. Yes.
Any other questions? Any opposition putting this on consent agenda this evening?
Thank you.
This will be on the consent agenda, sir. Thank you. Back to, I guess that's page, it's hard when there's no page number on these, but it's ordinance number 2023-101. It's an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Coward County to cooperate with and participate in the cost of construction to replace the Shaft Road Bridge and declaring an emergency. And Don, I think you and both, and then Vern also confirmed that right now, except for the tax that is collected, is that the, I guess, is that the gas tank, or what do you have the?
Motor vehicle.
Motor vehicle tank. That's where that's where our contribution comes, but there's no other contribution that comes with this. Do you want to explain a little bit further which bridge it is?
Sure, Vice Mayor, it's the bridge over West Creek on Shaft Road, south of Granger there. I'm not quite sure the age, but it's programmed through the county and through ODOT for 2026. So they routinely require these agreements and consent legislation in the communities that they have these projects. One point to note, not only is it zero cost for the city for construction, but also for the maintenance. It's 100% county structure to be forever maintained by the county.
And I see the estimated cost of construction is over $3.2 million.
Correct.
So this is a formality that these kind of contracts that we need to give approval.
correct.
Any questions for Don? Any opposition? We'll put this on consent agenda. Thank you, Don.
You're welcome.
Let's see, gotta get back to mine. Ordinance number 2023-102. It's an ordinance accepting the proposal of O'Brien Pools, Inc. to repair and resurface the existing outdoor activity pool and whirlpool with Diamond Bright for an amount not to exceed $191,741. And I think, that's what you want to?
I'll take
okay,
this,
Tom.
Vice Mayor, thank you. Yes, so we went out to bid for the resurfacing of the outdoor activity pool and whirlpool, and we received 3 bids. They ranged in price from $174 to $260. And so this ordinance is to award O'Brien Pools, which had the $174, and then the rest was the contingency that we put in because there are a couple of expansion joints in that pool that may need some extra work, so just have extra money available. That's why we went up to the 191.
10%.
10%, yes.
And I see, Tom, those, the other two bidders, were from out, one's from Missouri, I believe, and one from, they're both out of
Michigan,
state.
yeah, and that's, O'Brien Pools is right here in Cincinnati, so I know Jim would be happy with that. They have an Ohio company working on our pools. So, yeah, when we did our legwork, I was researching O'Brien Pools and all the references that they gave us came back positive. One of the big ones is they do the Great Wolf Lodges around the area, and they were very happy with all their work. And they've been in business for a while, and it's all they do is plaster work. And so, yeah, we're very happy with their bid. And I just want to say that if you Google search Diamond Bright life expectancy, it says 8 to 15 years, and this is the first time we're actually doing resurfacing these pools. So we got almost 24 years out of this, so I think it's a testament of how we maintain our pools, our water chemistry. So again, 24 years, and the average life expectancy is only 8 to 15. So
I see, Vern, we have 60,000 budgeted, but no problem as far as getting the other 131,000 moved around to cover the cost.
Well, the finance office never says no problem, but we'll make it work if it's passed.
And in regards to that, where we got the original budget number was back in 2017 when we were putting away money for this. I have the original email from the company that originally did that pool. Was called A&A Plastering. They ironically are out of Cincinnati also. They came back then with a price of $53,958 for the activity pool, and they were estimating another possibly $8,000 for the whirlpool. So that's where that number came from, unfortunately. And unfortunately, we didn't keep increasing it, and we didn't realize how much this has gone up since COVID. To do this work in that Diamond Bright product, so unfortunately.
Well, that's a good lesson there, Recreation Director Walchinowicz, and that all directors should pay heed to what just happened there. And when we update the capital plan, I think it's incumbent upon all of us to really look at the dollar amounts that are in there right now and see if they're still legitimate or not, so that we could head off situations like this a little earlier in the process going forward with some of these other purchases. So when we go through the capital budget updating process, we'll definitely be encouraging in getting these prices updated.
And then I know, Dennis, we rejected that bids for, that had to do with the slide, I think, or are these similar
Yes, that's correct.
companies that
The
work on
slide was
these?
rejected, and initially, we had bid this project, but we received one bid, and we determined that, I think that a number of contractors did initially get involved because of the time frame. So we allowed more contractors to participate because we actually, Tom, what is the deadline, May 15th?
May 15th of next
May
year.
15th, so I think we got a lot better response.
Has that other one been rebid or
It's in the process.
process?
Yeah, and that's for a separate project, that's for the slide, to resurface the slide flume.
And again, I think, Tom, when is the plan to have new, I think you're gonna have different activities installed in the book, because these are this original, I think, is that still
All
part
of
of
the
our
toys, yeah,
5-year?
we've been putting money away for that, yes, and if I'm not mistaken, it's around 26 that we have, that we're gonna start replacing those, the toy features that are in that pool.
But it's a tribute, I mean, that they lasted this long too, is,
Yes,
is
yes.
good. Any questions for Tom on this? And any-
Just to comment, I mean, in the proposals, I mean, maybe it was a challenge of being able to quantify because the O'Brien, they mentioned like we're only doing 15% in certain areas, or, you know, the pool's not drained, so we can't really see. I guess, is it gonna remain a challenge, Tom, just to be able to quantify the work that they are doing, so may not come back with such an extra?
I don't think that, the guy did end up coming up because he bid this and actually didn't see the pool. And he did come up, and we actually drained at least the whirlpool for him. And he was actually surprised of how intact everything was. And he felt very comfortable with this bid and the way it was written.
Yes, Council President, and just to reiterate what Tom said, O'Brien did come up, they inspected the pool. He thought that, he actually felt that the pool's in better shape than he anticipated because of the age.
Very good, thank you. Any problem having this on the consent agenda this evening? Very good. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Dennis. Ordinance number 2023-103 is ordinance amending ordinance 2023-90, accepting the bids for snow plowing services for senior citizens, disabled persons, active military residents for the 2023-2024 snow season. Dennis, if you.
Yes, ordinance 23-90 awarded 16 of the 21 routes. Council authorized the rebid of the 6 remaining routes. This ordinance addresses those 6 routes. We received bids and we can have full coverage for all 21 routes within the city. As we anticipated, the rebid costs, it did increase. It increased $1.88 per drive per average, and it will increase the cost per event to $33,200 a snow event. That's based on 762 driveways.
Any questions for Dennis? And we talked about this thoroughly at the workshop and everything, so. Seeing none, any problem putting this on the consent agenda this evening?
Thank you.
Seeing none? Thank you, Dennis.
I do have a question, though. The description of active military, those terms.
Yes.
Somebody help me out with those?
I'll get you the definition, I believe it's in the ordinance.
That's on the next piece of legislation.
On the other one?
We're going to have later on the agenda.
Yeah, this is just awarding the bids.
Right. Okay.
So we'll get to that when we get to that next piece of legislation on this topic. Now we go to ordinance number 2023-104. And matter of fact, the next number, Ron, will be all purchases that we're making for service departments. So we start off with ordinance number 2023-104. It's an ordinance authorizing the purchase and delivery of 4 new 2025 Whipkey residential front loaders mounted on auto car ACX cab and chassis. These are rubbish packers. and in amount not to exceed $1,437,928. This includes total trade-in value of $350,000. Again, this was part of the workshop that we had, so we discussed it very thoroughly, but if you'd like to explain.
Yes, thank you, Vice Mayor. As we talked at the Streets and Sidewalks meeting and the workshop, this is for the 4 new Packers. We are trading in 3 and keeping 1 as a backup. Like you said, $1.4 million and $350,000 on the trade-in. It's coming off the Sourcewell contract, and there's about a 20-month to 24-month lead time on these new red Packers.
So the whole process to replace these trucks will take a period of about, what, 3 to 4 years?
2 years, 24
2
months.
years.
And do we anticipate receiving all 4 at once, or will they come staggered, or
No, we anticipate all 4 at once.
2 years?
Correct.
And then we'll retain 1 year as a backup in you.
That is correct.
Yeah. Any questions for Ron? Any problem having this on the consent agenda? Seeing none, Debbie, we will place 104 on the consent agenda this evening. To ordinance 2023-105.
This one is for a, excuse me, a 24 VACCON. We are trading in our sweeper towards this VACCON. This VACCON is about 13 to 15 months out, and it is also coming from the Sourcewell contract for a price not to exceed $480,474. Again, this was discussed at the workshop extensively.
And so the street sweeper will be traded in to offset the cost of this VACCON truck?
Well, yes, but also because we were buying in the 106 a new street sweeper, the money worked out better. We traded it, we got a price to trade in sweeper for sweeper, and they offered us $60,000 versus 60 versus the trading in for the VACCON, they offered $145,000 for the sweeper. That's why we went that route with that.
And we're keeping the old VACCON truck?
We are keeping the old VACCON truck for a catch basin truck. So we have the capabilities to jet the basins while we're out there as well.
So we will have 3 VAC trucks?
We will have 2 VAC trucks.
Don't we have one for the catch basin program?
So that's just a VAC-all, it's not a jet truck. We have the backup jet truck and a new jet truck.
Right, so we'll have 2 VAC jets and 1 VAC.
VAC-all, yes, that's
Yeah.
correct.
As I noted, I see that we have 3 of the purchases for the service department, all use that Sourcewell cooperative purchasing program, I see, so. We had the last, the Packers, Burbridge Packers, and I think there's one more that uses the, I believe it's the swap loader model.
The
that
VAC-on
uses the
Sourcewell.
also.
The short sweeper is coming off the ODOT contract. And the Ford F-550 is off the state of Ohio.
So we have a different consortium as far as that we use on.
Correct.
Depending on the best price.
Correct,
And
absolutely.
availability.
Yes.
Any questions any further questions for Ron on this topic? No problem putting this on the consent agenda? We move to ordinance 2023-106. It's an ordinance authorizing the purchase and delivery of 1 new 2023, is that Schwartz A7 regenerative air street sweeper mounted on 2023 Freightliner M2 chassis for the service department, not to exceed $367,481. Ron?
Yes, this is a 23 Schwartz sweeper. It is on the ground now. As soon as we get a PO, we can go pick it up and start sweeping the streets again. As we discussed, this is off the ODOT contract. It offered the best pricing, and it's coming from Southeastern Equipment.
Any questions for Ron on this? And Vern, all these are all part of the 5-year plan that we have in place?
Correct. We did have to move some of the timeline up but we accounted for the vast majority of that in the August appropriation amendment.
Very good. No problem putting this on the consent agenda this evening? Debbie?
And nobody's asking a lot of questions, but we hashed this all out.
Oh, ad
The meeting
nauseam.
before, a couple
Right.
weeks ago. so
Extensively.
It was quite lengthy discussion.
That's right. That's why I'm allowing this sidebar over here.
For the sidebar. We just want to make sure the legislation is correct.
Right, very good. Well, like I say, it's something to try to concentrate on. Oh, I only got a few more months to concentrate. Ordinance number 2023-107 is an ordinance authorizing the purchase and delivery of one new 2023 Ford F-550 4x4 for the Service Department in an amount not to exceed $80,177.
Yes, thank you, Vice Mayor. This is a 550, actually 107 and ordinance 108, they go together. The swap loader goes on the 550. The 550 is a 23 Ford F-550 with a 7.3 liter gas engine on it. It is coming from the State of Ohio contract. And then it is on the ground immediately following the swap loader install, hoping to have it by the end of October, mid-November is the timeframe.
Very good. Any further questions? And again, we'll put this on the consent agenda.
That $192,000 for the pool that lasts 24 years don't sound too bad now.
No, that's for sure.
Just, I don't remember the last one, Ron, is that a replacement or that's adding to the fleet?
It's a replacement of a 2006 550.
Okay, so 107 will be on the consent agenda. Orders number 2023-108. I think it's the last one for you, Ron. An ordinance
Correct.
authorizing the purchase and delivery of one new swap loader model SL 105 snow and ice equipment package in an amount not to exceed $107,028.68.
Yeah, as we discussed, the swap loader, it goes on the 550. Pretty simple, it's the same model we have now, the SL 105. We'll put a plow on the front of the truck and a salt box on the swap loader and can do containers as well.
Very good. Any questions for Ron? And we'll put this on the consent agenda this evening also. Thank you, Ron.
Thank you.
Ordinance number 2023-109, we've already discussed, and it's on the consent agenda. We move to ordinance number 2023-110, and it's ordinance enacting new chapter 1384 of Title VII, other local provisions of Part 13 Building Code of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Independence regarding electric vehicle charging stations. And Mike, any comments on this?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. A few months ago, we came to the city council and requested a ordinance to enact a moratorium on electric vehicle charging stations until we had an opportunity to look at some of the restrictions as far as zoning and setbacks and locations. We put this together. It was presented to Planning Commission for review and comments. They went ahead and decided it should be moved forward to council. So this is that ordinance with the items that we feel are, at this time, these items would be considered a guideline for someone that wants to put in electric vehicle charging station. And this only affects the commercial properties in town. This is not, does not deal with the residential use or someone putting one in their home or in their garage. Any issue that a applicant may have, they also have the right to appeal to the Board of Zoning Appeals for a variance to the section that they're challenged with. So anybody have any questions?
The legislation calls for annual inspections. Is that something that your department will be handling?
No, it's not. The annual inspection would be provided by a
looking for that section. I believe it calls for annual inspection provided by a licensed contractor or person certified. Scanning through, I don't recall which one that was exactly.
I'm just looking at page 4. It just says that, number 4, the EVCS shall be inspected once a year. Proof of inspection shall be made available to the fire department upon
To the fire
request.
department upon request, yes. Right now, that's something that the fire department requested and kind of looked at. It would be done by someone who is an installer or someone with a certification in that equipment. It's not something the building department would go out and do.
Mayor, it's my understanding that you'd like to have this on first reading
Yeah,
and
we
refer to a
first reading,
workshop.
Refer to a workshop or utilities committee, I don't care.
This will allow council more time to review this and have questions, and Mayor need to defer for Mike.
Yeah.
And if you can probably let Mike know too, there's a concern or a question, let him know ahead of time, so this way, Mike, you could,
That'd be
if you
good.
need to do a little preparation or research, then that you could.
That'd be good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
John?
Mike, when we first talked about the moratorium, you weren't aware of any charging station in process or something that was going to
There
come
was
in?
no one that had an active application at that time.
Any updates since then?
I have not had anybody that's applied for any or actually had any questions about this.
All right, thanks.
And did we receive a NOPEC grant for charging stations at the CBiz parking lot? Are we moving
No,
forward with that?
No. Their grants went out to a variety of communities, and we were not one of the successful first-round allocation communities.
So do we still plan to put charging stations in that parking lot, or?
You know, I think there's a lot, the jury's out, that's one of the things we can talk about at the workshop, because of the, people in the industry have indicated to me that they're putting them in, installing them in communities, and the utility's not hooking them up, because there's a lag between the public utility and the service customers, so there's really a challenge going on, and eventually, from what I understand, it's, one of the challenges utilities are having is the grid. So this is going to take an interesting course in the future. But we can talk about all these things at the workshop. That's okay, Mike? If we put on first reading? and just-
That's fine, that's fine. I just wanted to get
Everybody
it
can
before
generate
council.
questions, we'll have a robust discussion.
So then we'll have to schedule a workshop between now
Yeah.
and the next
Sure.
meeting. Very
And
good.
if it, yeah, that'll be our goal, yeah.
Very good. So this will be kept on first reading.
First reading.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. To ordinance number 2023-111. And these are, I always like to have these type of ordinances. There's another TIF financing district being created. So I'll let Jessica, you have the floor to.
Thank you.
to
Yes,
describe
this piece of legislation is looking to TIF the new 260,000 square foot flexible industrial building the construction is being finished on Rio Nero. The building has announced 2 tenants for that building, which will make it completely occupied when it's delivered. The developers indicated the construction cost for that building to be approximately $18.3 million. And while construction cost does not translate to the fiscal office to an appraised value, if that number does hold true, we would anticipate about $382,000 in annual pilots, which would break down to be about $226,800 to the Independence Local Schools and the Cuyahoga Valley Career Center, with about $155,900 remaining to the City of Independence during that time that could be utilized for public infrastructure projects. We would TIF this for a period of 30 years, which means that would yield approximately $4.7 million for the Independence local schools as well as the Cuyahoga Valley Career Center. I'm sorry, $4.7 million for the City of Independence and 6.8 for the Cuyahoga Valley Career Center and the Independence local schools. So this would just be consistent with our past projects or past practice of tipping new construction.
Very good. And any questions for Jessica on this? When do they anticipate occupancy, early next year, or?
No, they're being delivered here. I think there's some occupancy already in the building for Faber-Castell, if I'm correct.
Oh, so they're already
Mhm.
moving.
There's signage, the building's painted, it looks really great back there.
Oh, it must have just been the last couple of weeks.
Yes, they've been moving very quickly.
A couple of weeks ago. Very good. Any questions for Jessica on this? And any opposition? It's on the consent agenda?
I'm going to abstain.
Oh, yes. And so we'll vote on this separately. That's right, John, I forgot. We'll vote on this separately.
Thank you.
John, we were rolling.
Got to work today, Chris.
Oh,
Not off easy.
very good. Thank you, Jessica. We move to ordinance number 2023-112. Ordinance amending section 959.01, service established qualifications of the codified ordinances of the City of Independence relating to snow removal for senior citizens and disabled persons. And I think this is what, Anthony, you were referring to, another legislation, and I think you had a question too, Dale, on this matter regarding the active military personnel.
Yeah, that would be that would be full-time soldiers in the Army full-time, and this would be deployed for a minimum of 15 days. So that would be active military. Would not apply to reservists, although I think it should, but as many times that I'm fielding questions from Councilman Tracus, and he is being deployed and he's at camp, I was actually surprised at how many times reservists are actually out of town doing their service.
Yeah.
But
For this topic was of discussion at the last workshop on this too, and I know, Anthony, you had a reservation on this, so we'll be voting on this.
Just out of curiosity, would we be able to say active duty military and active reserve?
But isn't a reservist in the military? So if
I'm
there's
sorry?
Isn't a reservist part of the military?
Yeah, but
So-
active duty reserve means, active duty individuals means that you're actually at an Army base or, you're not living in Independence, basically. If you're on active reserve, you drill outside of your hometown generally. But what we're talking about obviously for deployments would apply to both of them. But active reserve would mean that if somebody happened to be, I just came back from an annual training exercise. So if the annual training exercise was in February, I wouldn't use this ordinance. But, if a reservist was, had a 2-week station somewhere out of state or in, another part of the state, they wouldn't be able to remove the snow from their driveway. So that would be the
I agree.
difference.
I think that was
I
the
mean, it
original
was-
intent. I think that was the original.
Deployed, if they're deployed, they call up, we're gonna put them on the list.
It's not a deployment when you are, but if you're under orders for a non-deployment and you're still just drilling elsewhere, that's not considered a deployment.
Yeah, but if they call up, they're gonna get their driveway plowed.
Okay.
Any other questions regarding this?
Are we plowing employee driveways anymore?
I don't believe we
I
are.
don't believe no, it wasn't part of the,
I thought that's what we had dropped, but I was just checking.
yeah. It's been a few years.
Not to my knowledge, are we, Ronnie? I don't
No,
know.
no, we are not.
No, we're not.
No.
I thought it was discussed that employees could contact the driver of that route and just pay them direct. I thought that.
That's outside the city's responsibility, though.
Correct.
I don't recall that discussion, but.
I thought that was brought up about if an employee wanted to call whoever got their route in their neighborhood, they do that on their own.
I think there was
Like the
any.
city would, as the mayor said, have nothing to do with it. I get that same rate.
Was that it? Wasn't that any resident that wanted to have a one push?
Maybe that was it too.
I think it was any resident, not just,
Oh, yeah,
employee.
police with the employees off of it, yeah.
Correct. Yes.
Very good. Well, we'll be voting on this evening separately, Debbie.
Right.
Resolution number 2023-6, it's a resolution accepting the amounts and rates as determined by the Budget Commission and authorizing the necessary tax levies and certifying them to the county fiscal officers. And Vern, I know you explained that to us, but if you want to just reiterate what you have in your report.
Yes, Vice Mayor, that's just confirming the 2.2 mils that the city collects inside millage, and Superintendent Hegedish, inside millage, two of your favorite words, I'm sure.
Very good. Any opposition putting this on the consent agenda? Seeing none, Debbie, we'll put this on the consent agenda. And Mayor, that ends the caucus.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. We all ready? Good evening. We have the regular meeting of City Council of Tuesday, September 12th, 2023. Clerk will call the roll.
DeGeronimo.
Here.
Rendell.
Here.
Narducci.
Here.
Tagliani.
Here.
Tracus.
Present.
Faberka.
Here.
Walchanowitz.
Here.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Audience participation? Yes.
Is there any update on the Concordia housing development project at all?
Yes, I reported to council that we should have something to present to council in terms of for their review and analysis the next couple, 2 or 3 months.
Oh, okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Superintendent Hagedish. Was anybody else? No, just superintendent.
Thank you, Mayor, Directors, members of council. And Mayor, I appreciate the 20-minute time slot. Thank you for that.
You see this? It's called being 3 minutes.
Just kidding. Understood. I practiced. I've never talked for 3 minutes or less, but I'm going to give it a go today. So first of all, I just wanted to come and just say hello, welcome back. It's our new year, and it's been a great new year in the Independence Local Schools. Hopefully you've been able to see some of the excitement, some of the things going on. Perhaps you were able to see our welcome back video. We have amped up our video communication actually at no cost to the district. We were able to use some state subsidy grant money to put together monthly communication videos, and our first was just a welcome back video. So I wanted to bring a few things for you here tonight, but I'm gonna put them together and drop them off. I'm gonna first need to know your t-shirt size. I wanna give everybody a little Blue Devil swag, but Mr. Walchanowitz, I was unsure if you were a medium or a large. So I've got to get sizes. So I'll send out an email tomorrow following up from my.
It depends on which Walchanowitz you're talking.
Absolutely. An extra medium, perhaps. The second thing I wanted to give everybody tonight is one of these iPride cards, and I'll deliver those as well. But just with all of you being public officials and public servants, I really wanted to extend. We're done with COVID. We're done with pandemic, and we're back and we're opened up. And oftentimes we've got the best show in town, whether it's on the field, whether it's on the court, whether it's on the stage. And having you be part of that is really special. And this is, kind of my lifetime cordial invite for that, and for spouses too. So I'll make sure everybody has one of these. They're good at all of our home events, excluding playoffs. So even I have to pay for playoffs. So I'll drop those off. And then the third thing that I wanted to pass out and take, I think the minute 40 left of my 3 minutes, was just some initial facts and some initial sharing about the Independence Local Schools and the 2 levies that we'll have on the ballot in November. So just kind of reviewing those. The first will be issue 9. We just got our issue numbers. And issue 9 is a renewal. That's a renewal of a funding mechanism that was first approved by the community in 2011. That's a $4.2 million fixed sum levy. You may hear the term emergency levy. So both of these levies are emergency levies, but that doesn't mean, oh no, what's going on, emergency. What that means in school finance world is that they are fixed sum levies. So they generate the same amount of money for the lifetime of the levy. This first one, as I mentioned, was first approved in 2011, generated the same $4.2 million in collection year 2012 as it will generate in its last collection year, 2024. And so as property valuations, with the exception of sometimes recession, generally go up, the millage decreases to generate the same amount of money. And this renewal is not an increase of taxes. In fact, if you get very deep into the weeds, it's a slight decrease for most property owners. Now, if you did a great addition or had a reevaluation, that might affect that, but we can comfortably say that it's not an increase in taxes. That currently costs homeowners about $250 a year, within a few cents of that, per $100,000 of real home value. The second levy will be an increase. This will be a new money request. That'll be issue 10. Issue 10 will be a $2 million fixed sum emergency levy. Again, not emergency, oh no, but emergency fixed sum that will generate that same $2 million. That represents approximately a 10% increase in our operating. We have, with the exception of May, where we had our first attempt, we had our issues together. We also had some new programming, and it was for a greater amount. We took the feedback, including a loss at the polls, split those issues, took away any significant new programming in terms of preschool offerings where there were, close to $500,000 or $600,000 of potential costs in some of those. We lowered the amount, split the issues based on community feedback. And what issue 10 would do would allow us to continue what I consider continuous improvement, a continuous improvement approach to school operations that we've been exhibiting, I think, over the last 10 years, 9 of which I've been able to be your superintendent for. And that includes a significant improvement over time in our offerings, our courses that we have, our technology. We went from managing 30 devices to now we have over 3,000 devices at no increased cost to our residents, to our students and our families. We have some of the lowest technology fees, class fees, participation fees in the area. We're the lowest gross tax district in the county. And the services that I think hopefully our school provides are consistent with the outstanding services the city provides. This would allow us to continue to have a continuous improvement model of school operations and to gently grow what we do in terms of technology, in terms of courses. It would allow us to keep our class sizes at levels that our families think are amazing. I was reading Brecksville's update, and their class sizes are significantly larger than ours, and that plays to our strength of our relationships, our connections. I think I'm over on time. And it would also allow us to continue to operate in the black. We've been 3 years deficit spending, gently dipping our toes into that, and make operational adjustments as we go. But there comes a point in time when the cost of a school bus, the cost of a driver, the cost of electricity just has increased. And so I will have a lot more information to share. I'll be inviting all of you to a series of town hall meetings that we'll be putting on. I also want to perk your ears or your eyes for our fall edition of the Independence Quarterly and our quality profile, where you'll get to read more about all of those things that I brag about, quite frankly, of what we offer for our kids and the successes that we have in the classroom and outside of the classroom. So thank you for your time. I think I went over tonight, but I'm looking forward to having continued discussion. And I'll be sending everybody an email to get your swag, Independence Blue Devil sizes, and also have those iPride cards and some facts and statistics here. So thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent.
Thank you.
Mayor, if I could, second, just to follow up on Superintendent Higgitish's comments. Thank you, Ben. There's a very passionate group of individuals that put together what I would say a very sophisticated plan to market both issue 9 and issue 10 here, so that there is more public awareness of these two issues than there was for the May levy request. They've got a number of committees they're forming to over the next month and a half, really take a professional approach to educating and informing the community about these two issues. One of those committees is endorsements and comments. And so I've been asked to just throw it out to members of council, the mayor, elected officials. If you would like to provide a quote, if you would like to provide an endorsement, let me know, let Superintendent Hegedish know, and they'll pass that, I will or Ben will pass that along to the appropriate individuals so that that can be used in some of the marketing materials between now and the first Tuesday in November.
Thank you. Let's see, do we have a motion to approve the minutes of the regular council meeting of August 12th, 2023, the minutes of the Streets and Sidewalks Committee of August 1st, 2023, the minutes of the council workshop of August 29th, 2023, and the minutes of the Public Buildings and Lands Committee meeting of August 31st, 2023.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And those minutes are all adopted. We have ordinance 2023-95.
Title only?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
An ordinance amending Chapter 1366 lease rental occupancy certificate of the codified ordinances of the City of Independence.
Move the adoption.
Second?
Any questions on the adoption? Call the roll.
DeGeronimo?
Yes.
Grandel?
Yes.
Narduzzi,
Yes.
Tagliani?
Yes.
Tracus?
Aye.
Laverca?
No.
Walchanowitz?
Yes.
And it's adopted. We have approval of the consent agenda items are considered routine. Each item will be read individually into the record, and the consent agenda will then be voted on as a whole by one motion and one roll. Do I have a motion to, let me see, title only of the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Ordinance 2023-98, an ordinance authorizing the disposal of the city's surplus goods, equipment, and vehicles through GovDeals online auction service. Ordinance 2023-99, an ordinance authorizing change order number 1 to the city's 2022 sanitary and storm sewer maintenance and repairs contract with United Survey, Inc. Ordinance 2023-100, an ordinance authorizing change order number 1 to the city's 2022 sanitary and storm sewer maintenance and repairs contract with C&K Industrial Services, Inc. Ordinance 2023-101, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Cuyahoga County to cooperate with and participate in the cost of construction to replace the Shaft Road Bridge 02.89 and declaring an emergency. Ordinance 2023-102, an ordinance accepting the proposal of O'Brien Pools, Inc. to repair and resurface the existing outdoor activity pool and whirlpool with Diamond Bright. Ordinance 2023-103, an ordinance amending ordinance 2023-90, accepting the bids for snow plowing services for senior citizens, disabled persons, active military residents for the 2023-2024 snow season. Ordinance 2023-104, an ordinance authorizing the purchase and delivery of 4 new 2025 Whitkey residential front loaders mounted on Autocar ACX cabin chassis rubbish packers revision 1. Ordinance 2023-105, an ordinance authorizing the purchase and delivery of 1 new 2024 VACCON Titan V single axle mounted on 2024 Freightliner 1142 decaf. 2023-106, an ordinance authorizing the purchase and delivery of 1 new 2023 Schwarz A7 regenerative air street sweeper mounted on the 2023 Freightliner M2 chassis for the service department. Ordinance 2023-107, an ordinance authorizing the purchase and delivery of 1 new 2023 Ford F-550 4x4 for the service department. 2023-108, an ordinance authorizing the purchase and delivery of 1 new swap loader model SL105 snow and ice equipment package. 2023-109, an ordinance accepting the proposal of James B. Oswald Company for professional insurance broker services for the purchase of health care insurance for the city 2023 to 2024. And Resolution 2023-6, a resolution accepting the amounts and rates as determined by the Budget Commission and authorizing the necessary tax levies and certifying them to the county fiscal officer.
Motion to suspend?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Motion to adopt?
Second.
Any questions on the adoption of the consent agenda? Call the roll.
Grindel?
Yes.
Narduzzi?
Yes.
Tagliati?
Yes.
Tracus?
Aye.
Paverka?
Yes.
Walchanowitz?
Yes.
DeGeronimo?
Yes.
And the consent agenda is adopted. We have ordinance 2023-110.
Title only?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
An ordinance enacting new chapter 1384 of Title VII, other local provisions of Part 13 Building Code of the codified ordinances of the City of Independence regarding electric vehicle charging stations.
And that'll remain on first reading and referred to utilities or a workshop, whichever can be planned sooner. We have ordinance 2023-110.
Title only.
Second.
111, I'm sorry, 111. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
An ordinance declaring improvements to certain parcels of property in the City of Independence, Ohio to be a public purpose for purposes of sections 5709.40 and 5709.42 of the Ohio Revised Code and exempt from taxation, describing public improvements to be made to directly benefit the parcel, requiring the owners of parcel to make service payments in lieu of taxes, establishing a municipal public improvement tax increment equivalent fund for the deposit of service payments, making related authorizations pursuant to Ohio Revised Code sections 5709.40, 5709.42, and 5709.43.
Motion to suspend?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Motion to adopt?
Second.
Any questions on the adoption? Call the roll.
Narduzzi?
Yes.
Tagliati?
Yes.
Tracus?
Aye.
Paverka?
Yes.
Walchanowitz?
Yes.
DeGeronimo?
Abstain.
Grindel?
Yes.
And it's adopted. And we have ordinance 2023-112.
Title only.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
An ordinance amending section 959.01, service established qualifications of the codified ordinances of the City of Independence relating to snow removal for senior citizens and disabled persons.
Motion to suspend.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Motion to adopt?
Second.
Any questions on the adoption? Call the roll.
Tagliati?
No.
Tracus?
Aye.
Paverka?
Yes.
Walchanowitz?
Yes.
DeGeronimo?
Yes.
Grindel?
Yes.
Narduzzi?
Yes.
And it's adopted. We have no other business before this honorable body. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much, and thank you, everyone, for being here this evening, and God bless.
Bless you, Mayor.
Dave.
We're like scratching our heads on this orgy.
Recording stopped.
It's like, whoa.
I just know the.
John, do you know what that is?
I know those 20 folks down in Dallas, I know they have.
Hey, I'm not so sure, I'm not sure it was an orgy, though.
No, probably not. Although, it was a big beach, and they had a service quarters, and they said a few of the people were back in the service quarters. But they had no accountability for what they
You
did.
know what? That's okay, too. That's okay, too.
Right, I haven't seen him in a long time. No, he's been around.
Why did you take the bag?
Doesn't want to come?
You get my respect. For Tuesday.
Don't take it out till I approve it in the future.
Christmas lights.
Yeah, but we don't before special.
So you're one of those.
Maybe you saw in your old, I don't know.